Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be discussing my history with heavy metal because I'm a big metalhead and I'm going to be doing some videos on that throughout the year. I might be reviewing some new albums that come out from certain bands. So I just want to give you guys an understanding of how I became a metalhead and stuff like that. And please be warned, there will be some graphic album covers and stuff like that along the way, so if you're sensitive to heavy metal culture, and if it's not for you, then maybe turn off this video. So firstly, I discovered a band called Blind Guardian around late 2017, early 2018, around there. They are a power metal band, and they started out doing, like 80s thrash, and then they transitioned into power metal. They also do a bit of symphonic metal as well. So they encouraged me to try out other power metal bands like Hammerfall. Then I got carried away when it came to heavier styles of metal, the more extreme metal, specifically death metal. Examples of this include the one and only Cannibal Corpse, Skinless, which is more along the lines of slamming brutal death metal, Firespawn, a band that consisted of former members of Entombed. I also started venturing into melodic death metal with bands like In Flames, and symphonic metal with bands like Nightwish. There's even a genre that you may not know about called raga metal, and it's basically a mix of reggae, punk rock, and heavy metal, specifically nu metal. My favorite raga metal band is Skindred. They're a lot of fun to listen to. And all of this was in 2018. 2019, I started exploring groove metal. You look at bands like 6 Feet Under, who are somewhat of a death metal band as well, but they have a lot of detractors who will say otherwise. But still, I really enjoyed them. And fun fact, the frontman and lead singer of 6 Feet Under started out in Cannibal Corpse, the band I mentioned earlier. I also started getting into grindcore thanks to Cattle Decapitation, and they actually later transitioned into technical death metal. I don't know if this counts as metal, but industrial metal is something I like. The band KMFDM, who is a very diverse industrial band, they incorporate traditional industrial music, electro-industrial, industrial dance, industrial metal, industrial rock, all that kind of stuff, and it's really, really cool. Now, when it comes to thrash metal, I started getting into it thanks to two of my favorite thrash metal bands, that being Venom, who practically pioneered extreme metal, and Slayer. Also, while I'm not the biggest fan of technical death metal, I really do enjoy Flesh God Apocalypse, even though I haven't experienced their entire discography. They've only done about 5 albums, so I'll check that out when I can. Now, moving on to 2020, the year of the pandemic. Just before it started, I think around February, I revisited thrash metal and got into bands like Metallica and Megadeth. One more thing about thrash metal, the big four of thrash metal being Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax. The only band I haven't listened to is Anthrax, but I'll get to them eventually. Then I started to venture into traditional old school heavy metal. That's the foundation of heavy metal, that's where it all started, with bands like Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, and Judas Priest. Then I revisited grindcore by looking into Napalm Death, and they later played around with death metal and even groove metal. And that's the interesting thing about metal, is that some bands, they start out in one place and they end up in another. That's natural, that's how it goes. I mean, In Flames, who I mentioned earlier, later transitioned into mainstream alternative metal, which alienated some of their longtime fans, but it helped attract a much wider audience. Another genre that I found really interesting is progressive death metal, or simply progressive metal. And the band I discovered when looking into that genre was Opeth. They started out as a traditional black metal band with their demos and stuff like that. Then on their albums, they transitioned to progressive death metal and then progressive rock, which angered a lot of their longtime fans. But I enjoy that stuff, I really, really do. I also revisited death metal that year by listening to bands like Possessed and Death, and I'm aware of the whole debate in terms of who invented death metal, and I'm gonna say Possessed. That's just my opinion. Then I got into the one genre I never thought I'd enjoy, and that's black metal. But I'm more into blackened death metal, which is basically sort of the missing link between black metal and death metal. But when it comes to traditional black metal, I got into Mayhem and some of the early traditional black metal that Behemoth did. Behemoth is my favorite black metal band. But when they transitioned to blackened death metal and when their sound evolved over the years, they became much better. And last but not least, nu metal. When you think of nu metal, you think of bands like Korn, who I actually dig, and Limp Bizkit, and maybe some of the early stuff that Linkin Park did. And growing up, I was actually into Limp Bizkit. I know they get a lot of hate, and I understand why, but the Chocolate Starfish and the Hot Dog Flavored Water album is actually pretty cool, and that's the only album of theirs that I've actually listened to. I know Slipknot incorporates nu metal into their sound, but I haven't listened to them yet. They're a cool band though. Now, to be honest, even though I've been a metalhead for like almost 3 years, I've never actually been to a concert. Never. Because growing up, I never really liked heavy metal. It was just noise to me. I never understood it. But now I do, so maybe sometime during this decade, I hope to experience that for the first time. Now, there are tons of other bands I really want to get into, like Carcass. They have a new album coming out this year, and there's a ton of others. I'll have a list right here. So yeah, that's my history with heavy metal. Next time, I'm gonna make a list of my top 20 favorite bands of all time, and yeah, that's gonna be interesting to talk about. So thank you all for watching. Please be sure to like the video, share it and subscribe, and hit the notification icon. Be safe during this time, and I'll see you soon.